Hello and welcome, everyone. Today we're going to be discussing the velocity banking strategy, velocity banking concept, really what to do before you even start this strategy. So many of you watching this channel for the very first time, or maybe this is one of your very first videos coming across velocity banking, you're just hearing about it, and let's just say you are sold, fully sold. You're like, I want to do this. This is going to help my personal finances. This is going to help me get to the next level, whatever that may be. I want to pump the brakes on you just for a minute for you to just reflect and really think on what are some things that I could be doing before I jump into this strategy. I may have been sold into it. I may have been convinced. I may have watched Denzel's videos or someone else's videos on this, and I'm like, I'm really excited. I want to do this. And maybe there are some things that you don't see that could potentially get you in a lot of trouble, right? With your personal finances, not understanding all the different nuances in place. I would argue that velocity banking is one of those things that you do need to know a lot about it before you actually start it. For example, in other situations, you've got, say someone is learning how to drive a car for the very first time. You don't need to know every single part in the vehicle for you to operate the vehicle. No doubt about that. And most people will successfully drive cars. But I would make a strong argument that when looking at the velocity banking strategy and concept, I wouldn't argue you need to know every single part of that vehicle, that car, for you to drive it. But you do need to know how to change the oil. You do need to know how to change the car, the tires. You do need to know how to check your transmission. You do need to know when you're running low on certain fluids. You do need to know how to read certain digital information on the vehicle, on the dashboard, right? Other than just drive, brake, slow down, right turn, left turn, U-turn, parallel park. You see that distinction that I'm making there? So when it comes to this strategy, a lot of you are getting into it thinking that you're doing it right, thinking that you can just hop in this vehicle and go drive it and not realize you just got in a very exotic sports car, let's say, right? It's manual drive, not automotive, okay? So this video is specifically going to spend a lot of time on all of the pre-steps, all the before stuff, the education, right? And then just reminding you that this entire channel is preparing you for that particular strategy. The majority of videos on this channel talks about all the different things regarding velocity banking, all the good, all the bad, all the ugly, when to do it, when not to do it, how to prepare, when to pivot, when to make tweaks, when to make changes, how to stay on top of all these things. Super, super important. So with that, we're just going to take it right to the whiteboard. If you're here live, you can comment your questions along the way, and I'll refer back to you once we're complete. And I'm even willing to run some numbers if you want to present in the chat, give as many details about your current situation, what you're going through right now, the stage that you're at, and that sort of thing. Okay? So what to do before you start velocity banking? First and foremost, you have got to know your numbers through and through. There are 4 major numbers in your personal finances, and it's a summary, it's a picture of what you have going on, okay? So those 4 major numbers is your net income after taxes, what you exactly net, what you take home from your work W-2 position, 1099, or business, or both, right? Or investments, or rental properties, right? What are you exactly netting on a monthly basis. That number could be different month to month. For many people, it's pretty consistent, right? So if you're a business owner watching, I understand you've got fluctuating income. What you can do is you look back 90 days up to a year, see how much you've produced, take that number divided by 12, and now you have an average of what you produce in a month. Okay? For everyone else that has consistent income, right? Put that dollar amount down. What's hitting your account net, right? When we come over to expenses, that second number. This number is including everything, okay? So I want to see monthly bills, debts, right? Debt payments. I want to see quarterly bills, annual bills, right? And even bills that are not consistent, but you know they come up at some point, right? So it could be a birthday, it might fall under an annual expense, right? Vacation here or there. You're basically going to look back 90 days up to a year, and based off of history, you'll be able to see, okay, on average, this is how much we spend on vacation. This is what we're doing on birthdays and holidays, right? This is how much we've typically spent on car repairs, right? We just we look at those specific types of expenses that aren't every single month, but they do come up in life, or let's just say unexpected expenses, life expenses. We literally look back in history, see what happened, 90 days up to a year. You look into your bank accounts and you just scroll and you look through it, the entire thing, right? And you just add up that number. So let's say we're looking at car maintenance, repairs, vehicle expenses outside of gas and car insurance, right? And we just tally up, okay, I spent, $500 replacing tires. I spent $2,000 on this and $1,000 here. Add those three numbers up, divide by 12. You now can create an expense, right, called car maintenance, right? And that helps us get to a true cash flow number at the end of the day. So cash flow is that money left over. In other words, they call it discretionary income, right? What's left over? Cash flow is money that has not been purposed yet for a particular task, right? For a particular role or purpose, okay? It doesn't have a role yet, right? We need to know what that number is. Based on how much cash flow we have is going to determine whether we even start velocity banking or not. So let's say after you take in all your income, you look at it, you look at all your expenses, and you are in the negative. Okay? I would say 90+% of the time, I'm going to tell you velocity banking is a no. Almost every single case study I've worked with, every single person I've worked with over the last 6 years, when they initially come to me, when they initially start working with me, and I'm actually talking to them one-to-one, and they come to the table with negative cash flow, and they're brand new at velocity banking, and they do not have a banking product to actually do velocity banking with, 9 times out of 10, we're not doing velocity banking. In fact, 10 out of 10, we're not doing velocity banking in that scenario, right? If I'm talking to someone that's in a negative cash flow position and they do have a tool such as a home equity line of credit, a business line of credit, a personal line of credit, right? So let's say you're someone that has negative cash flow, you spend more than what you make, negative cash flow, and you have a home equity line of credit. Velocity banking can be used in that situation to simply buy time or help them get out of that negative cash flow situation at a faster pace, okay? But it still may not be the full solution. There might have to be some external things that have to occur to get us back into a positive cash flow. So even in that case, it's like 9 out of 10 times, we're just not going to do velocity banking, even if financially we could maneuver and finesse and put ourselves in a positive cash flow. 9 times out of 10, I'm still telling them no, because they're brand new. They don't know all the nuances and the risk and leverage. I don't know them. I don't know if they're even going to listen to my plan. Okay? So it's often better for me to tell them no. Let's look at these external things that we can do before we actually get started with the strategy. Okay? So super important. You got to know your 4 major numbers. Okay? How do we know our 4 major numbers, Denzel? Like, I can't tell you how many people I talk to that they pay me money, right? Not just people I talk to for free. People that pay me money, good money. And they come to the call and they don't have their 4 major numbers. They don't know where their money is going, right? Can't tell you how many people I deal with that go through that. So it's much more than for me to just tell you, you have to know your numbers, right? And some people think they know because they get summaries. They send summaries. Here are my numbers, Denzel. I make $5,000. I spend $3,000 at cash flow. 1,500, whatever it is. I have this much debt. No. We have to do a much deeper dive on that. Much deeper dive. So how does one actually figure out what their numbers are? Okay. How do we go about doing this? Very simple. When I work with folks, I'm going to provide them with a financial spreadsheet where we can put things to a visual, give our eyes something visually to look at. Okay? So one option, right? We can either pen and paper. I'll give you the free ways. Pen and paper, right? This might cost some money. A whiteboard, just like this. This is typically free. A digital spreadsheet. Both myself and Christy Van, you're able to download that free financial spreadsheet where you can visually look at all your numbers. So that would be the first step, is decide, how am I going to begin to track my finances? Digital spreadsheet, whiteboard, pen and paper, maybe an app. Okay, I'll put that on here as well. And there's a good amount of apps out there that are free. All right. So now we have the commitment that we're going to know our numbers. This is what I need to do first. I just simply need to know my numbers. I'm not even making an argument for you to do velocity banking or not, or any strategy for that matter. I'm just simply saying, step 1, let's get your numbers. Simple as that. Let's get your numbers. How? Pen and paper, whiteboard, digital spreadsheet, app, all 4. Right? I do all 4. I'm a liar. I don't have an app, but I use pen and paper. I use a whiteboard. I have a digital spreadsheet. You could say I have an app because I use the Money Max account, which is, well, not like an app on your phone, but it is a online software that I can log into and see my numbers. So in a way, I'm doing all 4, in a way. So you decide the tool that you're going to use to gather your 4 major numbers. Let's say we figured that out. The third piece is actually doing the work. Okay? So how do we do that, Denzel? Well, you're going to schedule time, right? And I don't mean to come off like I'm talking to 5-year-olds, but it sure does feel like that sometimes when I talk to grown men and women of all walks of life, of all different cultures. It sure does feel like I'm talking to 5-year-olds sometimes. And then you know what I realized? I had this revelation or epiphany. I finally realized after 6 years working with adults 2 to 3 times my age, often 2 to 3 times my age, dealing with adults, what I've realized in my 10 plus years of working on my own personal finances, that I talk to a lot of Americans that have never spent 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour, a couple hours on their actual personal finances. So in that context, yes, I am actually talking to 5-year-olds in terms of, and matter of fact, I would even call them infants. Even though I'm talking to a grown woman or grown man, 50, 60, 45 years old, 39 years old, 47 years old, married 3 kids, married 4 kids, divorced 2 times, widowed, doesn't matter. When I put them in the context of personal finance, they are an infant. They don't speak financial literacy. They don't understand anything that I'm conveying to them over the phone. They think they do because they're an adult and I'm speaking English and they know English, right? So they think, or I've made the mistake that communication was communicated. That's a big mistake that I've made over the last 6 years as a financial coach, is assuming that communication occurred. And I realized, oh my goodness, I'm talking to babies that don't know financial literacy. I'm talking to infants. And that's not to be disrespectful to anyone. That's just simply, I'm telling the truth. Like, I'm talking to people about financial freedom, but they've never had one single conversation with any of their loved ones about financial freedom, about debt elimination. There's never been a dinner table discussion with their mom or dad. In the 18 plus years, let's see, I started talking, around maybe 1 or 2 years old, and memories for me didn't start around till about 4 or 5 years old. From 4 or 5 years old all the way to 18 years old, and even after that, the amount of dinner table discussions, let's run some math real quick. So I'm going to do 18 minus 5, 13 years, okay, times 365 days. So that's 4,745 days, right? Let's take this to the whiteboard. This is going to be mind-blowing for some of you. There's 28 people in the house watching. Check this out. In a 13-year timeline, this is my personal story, right? 13-year timeline. That's 4,745-ish days, give or take. And that's 4,745 dinners. I grew up in a family that I was fortunate enough to never pretty much miss a dinner. And if we missed a dinner, I mean, we had a late lunch or something like that. But for the most part, I got 3 meals a day for my upbringing, okay? So even though, I come from low income, I still had food on the plate for me. So I'm very grateful for that. But out of 4,745 dinners, let alone, just not even including breakfast and lunch, just talking dinners, because that's where most of families in America gather at one time, right? Would you make that argument? Most of us, maybe we eat breakfast alone or we have lunch on our own time during work. But for the most part, when it comes to dinner, everyone typically usually gathers at the table for the most part, right? Or has done it on a frequent basis. So we're talking 4,745 dinners. Not one time in my household, of the many households I've lived in. So I'm not just talking my household growing up. I was in another household. We've moved multiple times from New York to Florida. I've spent time in Puerto Rico. I've spent time at my grandparents' house on my Colombian side, on my Puerto Rican side. I've slept over other people's houses before. When I tell you, this is not a lie, my mom can verify, not one dinner was personal financial literacy and education ever discussed. Comment below if that's you. Comment below if from the time you started remembering memories till full adult, right? Count how many years that is for you. From the time you can remember memories to 18, 21, 24, whenever you first started on your personal financial journey, was there ever a dedicated, not a talking point about finance, not a little topic about should I refi my mortgage or not, or talking about debt, or a commercial comes on after Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy, and there's a financial conversation about debt relief or something like, no. I'm talking a full, dedicated dinner discussion on finance. This is a revelation for me. This is emotional. Comment. Not one dinner was ever discussed. Not one dinner was ever dedicated to personal financial literacy and education for me to have a successful life. Not one. That's not a shot at my family. That's not a shot at anyone. That's just the reality of the situation, of what's going on. So fast forward to now, you all listening, watching, full adult, talking to me, and let's say you're one of those people that you've never had a dedicated financial discussion about personal financial literacy outside of you yourself reading books or watching videos. And to come to Velocity Banking and think that you're going to be successful at it is a massive risk in and of itself. It's a massive risk for you to take in and of itself. Again, this comes with hindsight after 6 years of coaching folks. Now, I can say that for my specific 350 clients one-to-one that I've worked with, one-to-one that have paid and invested dollars with me, those 350 people, not the 57 plus thousand subscribers and the millions of views that I have on YouTube, just talking about the 350 one-to-one clients that I've accumulated over the last 6 years, I can count how many have had failures as it relates to either doing velocity banking or never getting to velocity banking. Again, and of those failures, again, it's like less than 10, okay? Of those failures, and when I say failure, I mean that person no longer works with me. They don't talk to me. They quit, right? Maybe I refunded them, or the relationship just ended and they quit on themselves. Those kinds of people, right? It's like 0.1% of my client base. They just quit. That the root cause of that was really external reasons and risks that they did not know, and even I myself wasn't really fully aware of. Because again, I think it just comes with hindsight. It comes with you actually doing a thing for so long and you being able to look back, reflect, and say, oh wow, for that person, I probably should have never maybe took them down this path, let's say, right? Of maybe I needed to take a few extra calls to really get to know that person prior to seeing me, right? Quite often, a lot of you that follow me, that work with me one-to-one, you've been listening to my content for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 4 years. I just had an email the other day. Someone said, I've been following you for 4 years. And I looked at our history. I looked at the email history and I was like, that's their very first email that they sent to me. They've been watching me for 4 years. Now they finally send me an email. Then they finally booked a phone call. All right, it's a totally different conversation. Chances are they're going to be much more prepared. Right? But for the vast majority of people watching this channel or other channels, with that context in mind, you're coming to the table fully naked when it comes to your personal financial knowledge and education, which is why I'm spending so much time on the 4 major numbers alone before I even get to these other great things that you need to do, right? So you got to know your numbers. You got to pick the method, the tool that you're going to track these numbers with: pen and paper, whiteboard, digital spreadsheet, app, all 4. Now you're going to schedule time on a weekly basis, 1 hour preferably, right? 1 hour preferably, okay, that you need to schedule to work on your personal finances. For you to look back 90 days up to a year, you're not going to get it done in one sit down, right? So keep that in mind. You're most likely not going to get all of your finances in one sit down, okay? So quite often, I've done this more today than I've done in my first few years of my practice. But when someone purchases a consultation with me, or they purchase my one-to-one program and they book a phone call and they come to that phone call without a financial spreadsheet, without their numbers, without pen and paper, I reschedule the call with them. In fact, what I'll do now, because I try to be more efficient, is I say, look, Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, you've had ample time to gather your numbers and finances. You booked the call. Instead of me rescheduling this, I'm going to reframe what we discuss in this hour. Okay? I do that for my one-to-one clients that have purchased my full financial freedom program. I won't reschedule the call, but I will reframe what we talk about on the call, because they'll put things in the notes. How do I get the HELOC? What's the best rate? What should I chunk at first, right? They're ready to go. And I totally reframed the conversation because I was like, I don't know what to do because I don't have your numbers and you don't know your numbers. You can't tell me them. Oh yeah, Denzel, I got them written down right here. Okay, let's begin. What's your income? $5,438. What's your expenses? Okay, we get to debts. Once we get to debts, that's where I get them typically. What's the name of the debt? Oh, credit card, Wells Fargo. What's the interest rate? Oh, give me a second. Takes them 3 minutes. Okay, the interest rate on that is 28%. Next debt, loan, car. Oh, I don't know how much I owe exactly, but the payment is this, and the interest rate, right, ends up being like we spend 30, 40 minutes just gathering numbers. Ends up being a waste of time, right? So, but again, I reframed the conversation. I said, look, I'm going to download this financial spreadsheet that I sent to you in advance. I'm going to send it to you right now. It's at the top of your email. You're going to log on. You're going to go on, and you're going to watch me put your numbers in as you communicate it to me, right? And we're going to verify these numbers, right? We're going to go through it, and it's not going to get done in one sit down. I promise you. It's going to take multiple sit downs. Now, if someone books a 1 hour consultation with me for $300, they're not in my one-to-one program yet. They booked a consultation with me for $300, right? For 1 hour with me. And they came to the call without their numbers, then I reschedule the call because I say, listen, Mr. Mrs. Client, you pay me $300 an hour. I can assure you I'm not going to be able to do my job. So you have 2 options. Either you waste the hour now, or we take 5 to 10 minutes for me to show you how to fill out the spreadsheet. I have a video that shows you how to fill out the spreadsheet, and you're going to take the time, you're going to fill that out, and then you're going to rebook the call with me. We're going to book the call now. We're going to rebook it now, right? And I'm going to give you 5 days, 1 week, whatever it is, to do that rebooking, right? 5 to 10 minutes to do that, and then we'll talk then. Sound good, Mr. and Mrs. Client? Yes, yes, yes. Great. Okay. So you need to schedule time on a weekly basis. 1 hour is all I'm asking for. I know mothers of 6. I know mothers of 5. I know mothers of 4. I know single mothers of 4, 5, 6. I know divorced mothers, single, of 3, 4, 5, with younglings under 10, and even they're able to find an hour a week to work on their personal finances. Okay? So there is absolutely no excuse. I don't care if you're a man that works 7 days a week. I promise you, I can find 1 hour in your life on a weekly basis. It doesn't have to be the same hour every single week. I'm just asking for 1 hour out of your precious week to start working on understanding your personal finances by tracking your numbers. Simple. Pen and paper, whiteboard, digital spreadsheet, app, all 4. You pick. Okay? Once we've accomplished that, we've got the tool, we've got the commitment. I need to know my 4 major numbers. I've got the tool. I bought a whiteboard, Denzel. I put it on the wall. Oh, shoot. I put it on the wall, right? I got this, Denzel. I've got the digital spreadsheet, and I found an hour of time to dedicate. This is what I'm going to do, right? Now, when we sit down for that hour, literally, it could be the hour that you're watching Denzel. Like, you can have me in the background playing, and you sit in your office, in your living room, on your bed, wherever, at the dinner table. You're going to have me playing in the background, and you're going to work on your finances, right? And I'm going to walk you through it step by step by step by step by step, okay? So now, the next step is you're going to log into your banking apps. Most of us, all of us, have checking accounts, savings accounts, credit cards. All of our income in America, every single one of us here, all of our income goes into a checking account unless you're getting paid cash under the table. Okay? For the most part, all of our income is going into a checking account. So you're going to be able to look and curate your online banking. You customize. You want to look at October 1st to October 31st, and you're just going to look at how much money came in to all my various different accounts. That's all we're looking for, right? And then you're going to write that number down for the month of October. That's how much came in. And then you're going to flip it. You're going to edit debits, right? And you're going to see how much money came out of that checking account in that same month, October 1st to the 31st. And then you go from there, right? And you do that for each and every single account. And that helps you understand what your income is and what your total expense is, all right? And that gives you the summary. Then you're going to look through all transactions, October 1st to the 31st. You're going to select all transactions for your credit card, for your checking account, right? Everything, wherever money came in and then left, right? All transactions. And then you go line by line by line by line. And you're going to create categories: water bill, sewer, gas, electric, car insurance, gas, mortgage payment, electricity, Wi-Fi, cable, Spotify, Netflix, Hulu, Disney, dot, 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 dot. And you're not going to stop. You're just going to keep going until that hour is over. When the hour is over, you put it down. Say, oh, I'll see you next week, right? Or you might be real excited and you extend it another 30 minutes, and that's totally fine too. All I was asking for was an hour. You set the alarm, 1 hour, let's go, okay? Once you've done that, you're literally going to do that for 90 days. We're looking back 3 months, because we're trying to develop a pattern. We're trying to see what is happening with our life financially. So you're going to look back 90 days up to a year for real data on your finances. Once you've done that part, congratulations, you are 90% ahead of majority of Americans in America today. Just by doing that part right there. That puts you 90% more likely that you will achieve whatever financial result, whatever financial goal you have in your life. You are 90% more likely to achieve whatever the goal is, despite whatever lack of skill, of genes, of whatever in your life. You start knowing your numbers, oh dear, watch out. Watch out, okay? So now here's where we actually start to work on our finances and start to make tweaks and changes before we even implement a strategy such as velocity banking, before we even implement that, okay? So let's say you did that, you got your four major numbers, wonderful. Next step, we're gonna do a cash flow analysis. So we're gonna look at how much cash flow you have at the end of every month on average, and we're gonna figure out where's that money going. Is it being saved? Is it not doing anything? Is it being invested in crypto, your 401k? Where's it going, right? And we're doing analysis, and I have a little stage process. This is in chronological order. This is what I do for a majority of my clients today, right? Not majority, this is what I do with all my clients today when I'm looking at their finances, especially when we start out building their finances. I'm simply looking at where do they waste money first. So waste management, in other words, is looking for inefficiencies in their expenses. Are they paying for something like double? Do they have too much insurance on something? Are they overpaying for cable? Are they overpaying for a subscription that we don't need to pay for that subscription because this subscription takes care of those two things, right? Are we overdrafting on bank accounts that we could simply end, that we could stop by just simply changing the flow at which money comes in and out to avoid overdraft fees? My goodness, the overdraft fee business for banks is incredible, ladies and gentlemen. There are so many people that are overdrafting on a weekly, monthly, daily basis. And I see it more often with business owners because of the high fluctuation in income sometimes. They might have a $15K month and then like a $2,000 month, right? And then they like run a negative in their checking account. There is so much that the W-2 person and the business owner can do to not pay overdraft fees, even if you run a negative cash flow. There's so much that we can do. One thing that those people can do that are running overdraft fees on a monthly basis, so that means that that's literally part of their expense is overdraft fees. $45, $35, $35, $45, $35, whatever that is, right? And I look at their flow of money in, money out, especially when I'm talking business owners. I'm like, you do know that I understand your payroll is extremely important, but you do know that when it comes to paying your vendors, that you can set up 30-day periods. Also, when you send your invoices, you can reduce the time. So instead of sending a 30-day invoice, you shrink it down to 14 days, 7 days. Like, we can make those demands, and then when we pay others out, we can take a little more time for the time being, right? Or you can simply change when certain bills are due to basically allow time for money to come in. So it's not that you're running a negative cash flow, but what does happen is on a 45-day cycle, you're running a negative cash flow. But on a 65-day or a 60-day schedule, you're not. or on a 30-day or a 15-day. So we basically look at the gaps at which money's not coming in. When money's not coming in, how do we tweak those due dates? So simple. Like that one little trick there is a game changer that I could recover hundreds of dollars a year in cash flow, right? So that's first, cash flow analysis, waste management. So I'm not even trying to reduce, restrict, create conflict, remove, not even trying to do any of that. I'm just simply saying, here's where you're wasting money, Mr. and Mrs. Client. I'll ask them simple things, especially when I'm dealing with people who are not business owners. Simple things like, hey, mom and dad, when you guys have dinners, when you guys do breakfast, when you guys do lunch at the house, how many of you scrape the plate when you're done eating? How many of you scrape the plate in your household after dinner? Let's just look at dinner alone, right? And typically, most Americans, we pack our plate, especially if you're Spanish, right? Pack your plate, eat. When you get full, you stop eating, and then there's scraps. You don't want those scraps, so what do? Dump it in the trash. I want you to like visualize or imagine your plate when you put food on it. I want you to imagine like dollar signs over the different things that you put on your plate. So if you had rice, chicken, and veggies, right? I want you to put a dollar sign over the rice, a dollar sign over the chicken, a dollar sign over the veggies, right? Couple dollars, and then say, okay, that's like a $12 plate. That's like an $8 plate, $7 plate, right? And let's say you eat 50% of your plate, and that was a $10 plate. You only ate 50%, right? And you don't want the scraps, so you dump it. I want you to visualize $5 coming out of your bank account, right? Just boop, $5. Now, times that by the amount of people in your household, and times that by the amount of meals, dinners you have in a week, and times that by a full month, 30 days, 31 days. Guess what? On average, you're wasting $90 to $150 a month on food waste alone. That's why whenever you take the damn trash out, it's so freaking full all the time, because there's nothing but food in there, because there's so much money. And here's another epiphany for the men. Typically, it's a man chore, right? Typically, wife, mom, they say, take the trash out. Honey, take the trash out. Can you take the trash out, honey? Notice how when you're told to do it, it's such a dread, like you're like dreading it. Like, oh, I gotta take the trash out. I realized last time when I was taking the trash out, I was like, the reason why this is a pain in the ass for me to take the trash out is because I have $75 in there. There's $95 in there in trash. There's $115 in there that I threw out this week. There's a full mango in there. There's a full vegetable in there. There's a full plate of food times 7 times, however many days before I took the trash out. And I'm like, this thing is heavier than what it actually is. And every time you go out of your house, you put it into the trash bin, and then you see the truck come by. And if you can imagine, visualize the big trash can that you have outside your door that you roll out to the front of the street, right? Or if you're in an apartment building, it's a trash chute. I want you to imagine that big thing that they pull out, right? And you could see where your money went. It went to the trash. Whoa, guys, when I saw this from my own finances, from my own household, and in other people's households, I said, listen, we don't even need to cut off Disney. We don't even need to cut cable yet. You're wasting so much money on food alone with this, scraps, or husband or wife, you guys cook too much food. So maybe that's your problem. You overcook. You're cooking for 20, you're only a family of 4. So now you're overcooking. You don't overeat, or whatever you do eat, you overeat, and then there's still leftovers, scraps, you throw that out. You try to be nice. I might be speaking way too much truth here. You try to be nice. You store the leftovers of food that you didn't eat. You put it in a Tupperware. You stick it in the fridge. You forget about it. You think you're going to eat it, but you don't, right? Oh my goodness, am I talking to someone here? For the 31 people watching? Is that real or what? So that step alone, on average, I'm able to find $100 to $500 in a month. On average, for majority of people I work with, waste management alone. And one of the critical areas is food. Then it's eating out and entertainment, right? So when you eat out, same thing. Dude, appetizer, entree, dessert, do you really need to do all three? Are you really going to eat all three? Like, or if you're going to do an app and you're going to do a dessert, can the family share? That's not being cheap. That's just being efficient. This one's not going to eat it. I already know she's not going to eat the whole damn thing. Might as well share with her, right? Or on the app, it's like, hey, babe, let's share an app and then we share a dessert. Every time I go out with my fiance, it's typically one app, 2 entrees, 1 dessert, typically. Unless we're like, we really want to try something different, right? But for the most part, it's 1 app, 2 entrees, 1 dessert. And we share. I'm not being cheap. It ain't like I don't have the money to get her a dessert and me a dessert. I'm just being efficient. I'm saying, like I'm not going to eat that. So I'm going to eat what you have, babe, right? And we're going to share, right? Like it's simple as that, right? So waste management, that alone can put so much money back into your economy before you even do velocity banking, before you even try to like finesse and offset interest and create cash flow and consolidate your car loan into the line of credit, right? Before you even do all that, it's like, hey, you got money burning right here. Waste management. Okay, here's the next one. Redirect cash flow. This is insane. Okay, redirecting cash flow is crazy, the amount of money that we can put back into your economy. Simple examples of redirecting cash flow sometimes has to do with like a certain expense in your life that if we just simply redirected how many times we do that thing, right? Fishing, golfing, whatever hobby activity, right? Or maybe you're purchasing too much of something that we can simply redirect, right, back into your economy. Another typical thing that I often see is those of you that are contributing to a 401k, an investment account, an IRA, sometimes redirecting where we're saving and where we are investing money, right? So if you're in loads and loads of debt, right? And let's just say your average cost of money on the debt side of your finances is stripping 30, almost 40% of your money every single month. And then you're only investing 5% of your income, right? 7, maybe 8% of your income is going towards investment. And then that 7, 8% is only earning on average 6 to 8%. That money is dying over here on the debt. Like, yeah, you're going to see your account grow here, but your debt over here is exponentially increasing in comparison to your investments over here. And then let alone that money's at risk. So there's many cases where people will redirect some, not all. I'm not even giving you a number. I'm just simply putting the thought, the possibility. Hey, what would it look like if we redirected 20, 30, 40, 50% of what you're contributing to your 401k, your IRA, your investment accounts for the next 6 to 9 months to give you a boost of cash flow, and then you put it right back at that later point in time? What does that look like, right? So redirecting cash flow can often result in $100 to as high as $1,000 in cash flow, okay? And then reduce, okay? So reduce This is where the more of the conscious awareness starts to really hit, right? And there's different ways of viewing the word reduce, okay? So one way of looking at your personal finances after you've done all these other steps first, that's what's key. If you try to reduce first, you're like, I'm in a negative cash flow, I have to reduce. I'm in a low cash flow environment, I have to like cut things off immediately. Sure, like you can go like quickly and do that. Oftentimes it does lead to failure. It's hard to sustain, very, very hard, right? And then you're making another, goal next year, right? It's like you started off great and then you fell off, right? And I think that's often because we haven't taken the time to actually just look at how are we living our lives, right? Who am I trying to impress? Who am I trying to boast, show off to? Maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's not even an ego thing. Maybe it's a trauma thing, right? Maybe it's an addiction thing that we just have to be honest about it, right? And we can hide behind our money problems or just simply address the traumatic thing that happened in your life and how that's bleeding into your finances, and we just track the story that you have and how we can break that, okay? So I've had lots of calls with clients where before I try to reduce something in their life, I first bring them to the awareness that the way they spend money on food, entertainment, eating out, shopping, clothes, right? I have them come to the conclusion. I don't say it, right? Because I don't live with them. But I let them come to the conclusion that, Denzel, that is a problem. The amount of money I spend on clothes per month, on food per month, on eating out per month. That is a problem. So now that we've presented, okay, this is a problem, right? Two ways of looking at it. We can create pain by simply going cold turkey, right? Like reducing or removing altogether. Or we can just simply evaluate, hey, when you eat out, every time you eat out, what are some emotions you're feeling when you roll up to the drive-thru or the restaurant, and then afterwards once you leave? Is it joy, pleasure, and then crash? Or is it joy all the way? Or is it 50% of the time I'm happy and then sad afterwards, regretting my decision, and then 50% of the time I'm happy and joyful, I had a wonderful evening, right? The more intentional you can become every time you eat out and just decide, oh, the reason why I want to eat out right now is because I'm being lazy because I don't want to cook, right? So therefore, I'm going to get a temporary pleasure, then I'm going to regret it later on because I have food in the fridge and now that food's going to go bad. The leftovers from last night are going to go bad now, right? Because I chose to eat out, right? So the question then becomes, how many times am I experiencing that fake pleasure, that fake joy, right? And from there, I say, how do we just reduce the amount of times you feel fake pleasure and just choose to be joyful each and every time, right? Creates a paradigm shift. It really does. Crazy, right? And then figuring out a strategy to, not put myself in the position where I'm feeling hungry, I don't know where food's at, and I'm gonna go eat out quickly, right? Well, if I meal prepped, or if I had a partner or an accountability partner to help me through with it, it's like you're preventing those things from happening in the first place. Your mind doesn't think about it, therefore it doesn't happen, right? That results in cash flow gain, okay? Reducing can be 100 to 300 to, $500 typically. Insane. Pretty cool stuff, right? So then it's just a matter of, okay, what are some things in my finances that I can consciously reduce but still enjoy that same thing, right? Just being more intentional about it, planning. right? And then the last final thing is remove, right? So removing things out of people's finances in my coaching practice, it's the final thing we do. It's the last thing that we do because there's so many other ways that I can recapture cash flow for them, redirect cash flow. Here's another one I forgot to mention about redirecting cash flow, right? You can make hundreds of dollars doing this. Switch banks. What a game changer that is right there. That's a gem. Those of you listening right now, especially for my senior clients, 59 and a half and up, right? Or even 50 and up, I would say. Majority of you that are right now listening, ages 50 and up, majority of you have been with the same bank for 20 years, 30 years, 35 years, 25 years, right? And they haven't done a damn thing for you in those 20, 25 years. Majority. Some, yes, I'll give it to you. But majority haven't done a damn thing for you other than commit fraud, especially those of you who have accounts with Wells Fargo. Many Black and Hispanics have bank accounts with Wells Fargo for 20 years, 30 years, 25 years. I'm like, what the hell has Wells Fargo ever done for you other than sell your information, commit fraud, discrimination, right? Prevent you from getting loans sometimes, giving you the worst interest rates, the worst features. Get out of here, right? Like, wake up, okay? So doing business with a different bank can recapture cash flow in your economy or can inject new cash flow. So for example, when you create a new checking and a savings account and you deposit a certain amount of dollars, you do a certain amount of things with that new bank, there's an incentive. Here's $300, here's $500, here's $200, right? Or you get a new credit card, right? You've had the same darn credit card for 15 years, right? And it's like, dude, go get another credit card. Let's just say, in this example, to inject cash flow into your economy. And let's just say you've had the same credit card for 15 years and you run $1,000, $1,500 on that card every single year. And it's really not doing much for you, but you've got this other opportunity over here where you can earn, $300 if you spend $3,000 in the first 90 days, right? And it's like, well, you're already doing that. You can just do it over here and then come back to that card. I'm not telling you to kill the 15-year card, right? But just by switching banks and institutions can inject new money into your finances by redirecting cash flow. Not bad at all. Okay, so that was a gem. Last was remove. You're just simply removing from what you've reduced if need be, right? So I've had certain clients that are like, okay, I'm not going to eat out for the next 30 days, or I'm going to make a little challenge for myself, 30, 60, 90 days. I'm not going to eat out. I'm going to meal prep, right? So I'm simply removing this, or I'm going to cut off subscriptions. I'm going to cut off cable. I don't need cable, Denzel. I have you. I have YouTube. I have Christy Van. I have all these wonderful content creators that are putting out loads and loads of content. I can just spend my downtime watching that instead of watching the television and pointless cable where my mind is just rotting, right? No need. So you just, remove certain subscriptions, you remove certain things from your economy. That's going to increase cash flow. And that's definitely a big one. I would say, 200 to 500 plus a month on average. So look at this. We've got hundreds, if not thousands of dollars that we could recapture before we even do velocity banking. Hundreds and thousands of dollars. So if I'm talking to a client that's coming to me with $500 a month in cash flow, and before I even touch velocity banking, I'm looking for how can I double their cash flow without velocity banking so that when I actually turn this thing on, they're going to fly. Okay? So we got 2 main points covered so far, and it's been an hour. All right, we haven't even got through the rest. Okay? Know your numbers, right? Cash flow analysis. Okay, now next part, you need to define debt. You need to define debt. Decide the role debt will play in your life. Those are the two questions I want you to answer, right? Those of you who are live right here, right now, catch the replay, comment below. What does debt mean to you? You can go with Google's definition of debt, or you can go with your own definition of debt. You, in the 21st century, you get to define debt. I'm giving you permission to define debt. My definition of debt is an instrument that I can use to create cash flow and build wealth with, long-term and short-term. There's no Google definition that will provide that. That's my definition. That's Denzel's definition. So I've chosen to take authority as a king. I decided to take authority over debt. I have control over debt. I defined it, I named it, I've subdued it, I have dominion over it, and I get to make it do what I want it to do. You get to do that in the 21st century today. I'm just letting you know. Okay? So define debt. Comment below. What is debt? Write it out. Think about it. Comment. What is debt? Comment. Don't just look up Google's definition. Comment. What is debt? Okay? Then I want you to decide the role that debt plays in your life. And that question should be in alignment with your definition of debt, right? So because my definition of debt is an instrument that I can use to create cash flow and build wealth with long-term and short-term, therefore, the role that debt plays in my life is that of service to me. Debt is in service to me. Debt serves my household. Debt serves my kingdom. I use debt to create wealth. The role that debt will play in my life is to mitigate and reduce risk, create leverage, create cash flow, create tax-free wealth. You just got to lay this stuff out. Define it, right? Take control and authority over it. Again, you live in the 21st century, you get to decide that. Moving right along. Next part. Now we finally, and we're not even there yet, but now we finally are asking the question, what is velocity banking? Like, what the heck is it? Now, you've heard my definitions over the years, especially if you've been following me for a while. If you're brand new and this is your very first video watching, and you're asking, what is velocity banking? I've answered this 100 different ways, what velocity banking is. And in the last year and a half, I've come to the conclusion that velocity banking is simply a marketing term to define a strategy that uses banking products from the banks, commercial banks, credit unions, right? Uses banking products to accelerate the speed at which debt is paid off to create cash flow, or accelerate investments through leverage of capital to create more cash flow. Pretty simple. Another definition that I've put on velocity banking is a debt consolidation tool. Velocity banking is a better way, is a more efficient way to consolidate different debts. It's another example, okay? So, once you've actually spent time understanding what velocity banking is and how it works before you even use it, now there are some key things you need to do. to really set yourself up for success. Once you know what velocity banking is, you then need to look up and research what are the velocity banking rules. I have videos dedicated to that topic alone, velocity banking rules, right? Fundamentals. What are some velocity banking fundamentals involved? So you've got fundamentals, you've got rules, you can kind of put those two together. And then you've got leverage and risk. Okay, anytime we're talking about velocity banking, what you need to understand as a newbie is you are injecting leverage and risk into your finances. Things can go wrong. The key is, how do we reduce the chances of those things going wrong by 90+%, right? So the word risk sometimes gets taken out of context. So anytime we say, yeah, that has risk, we immediately think, well, we're making the assumption that the percentage of risk is so high that I should not even touch it. And that's really not the case. If I said velocity banking has risk, follow-up should be how much, percentage-wise, on average, right? And so looking at each case study, we can say, look, the risk of this failing is about 75%. I'm not confident this person will pull through. I have a 25% chance it's going to be successful. So when I'm working with clients one-to-one, I'm basically like assessing as I'm working with them, like putting the whole strategy on the whiteboard or educating them over the phone or on Zoom, whatever it may be. And as I'm talking to them and they're explaining and I'm saying something and I'm saying, do you understand that? Okay, say it back to me. And they can't say it back to me. I like knock a point off, like I'm creating like a risk analysis here. And halfway into the call or definitely by the end of the call, I then make my recommendation and guidance and I say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, based on this conversation and the full context of what I know about you, I don't think you should do velocity banking, despite the numbers say that you'll have success. The numbers show that this is better than debt snowball, that this is better than making extra payments, right? I'm still going to tell them no. Why? Because they were not able to convey how money going into the line of credit and out of the line of credit, they were just confused on that part alone, and that's a major key. If you are resisting my guidance to tell you dump all your income into the line of credit, switch banks from over here to over here because it's going to create more efficiency, and then pull your expenses out when and only when they're due, if I get resistance there or confusion there, I'm saying stop, slow down. I'm like, dude, you're trying to do this. And I'm like, you don't even get this part. So you shouldn't do it, right? Or before you do it, let's have another phone call. Let's run it again on the whiteboard. Let's run it again on the white. Let's run it again. Let's run it again. Let's run it again until you get it. And the light bulb goes off and you're like, duh, money in, money out. I pay less interest. The more money stays in my line of credit, the less interest I pay on a daily basis. I should only pull the money out of the line of credit back to my checking account to pay bills. My checking account has just become a place where money goes out. The money does not reside or rest or stay stored in the checking account. It gets stored in my line of credit. When you have that kind of conviction, now we're moving. So, velocity banking rules, fundamentals, leverage and risk. Then we're talking strategy. What strategy are we using in velocity banking? Are we using velocity banking to help you fund life insurance policies? Is that something you want to try and do? Are we using velocity banking to accelerate a mortgage? Are we using velocity banking to accelerate consumer debts? Are we using velocity banking to help you start up your business? Are we using velocity banking to just simply make an investment and create cash flow? What is the strategy? Why do we want to do it? And then finally, we need a measuring stick. We need a ruler. We need a measure. Hey, right? You're off. How do you measure velocity banking if you don't compare it to anything? And many of you don't compare velocity banking to anything. So you think you're doing it right, and then you finally get on a call with an expert like myself, and I'll just say something very, very light. I'll say you're doing that inefficiently right now at the moment. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, at the moment you're abusing your credit card use. You're thinking that you're getting those points and cashback rewards to offset that interest, but you're actually increasing your cost of money and you're increasing your expenses overall. So therefore you're abusing the credit card and you're not dumping all your income into the line of credit because you're thinking you need to keep some money in your checking account to like pay a bill, and you're not realizing that you just need to dump all the income in, and at the same time you can pull money out of the line of credit and use that money to pay the bills, right? So you're missing that step. You're just abusing it at the moment, and I think you should stop. Very calm. That's usually how I deal with y'all. Very calm, right? I'm trying to decrease the temperature in your life, decrease the stress. So when you get on a call with me, the temperature goes down, stress levels go down, cholesterol goes down, because I have that softer tone kind of a voice, sort of smooth, right? And I do that on purpose. I do that intentionally because many of you are coming to the call already with a lot of stress, already anxious, right? So I don't want to be anxious with you. I'm like, oh my God, why are you doing that with the credit card? Oh my goodness. I may have made that mistake before, and I only do that with people that know me, because I'm like, hey, come on, you've been following me for 4 years. You mean to tell me in the 4 years you still are having trouble with this? Okay, there's something blocking. It's something external, right? Something going on. It's not your ability to, do this. There's something else going on. Let's talk about it. All right, and that's where I'm able to get a little more real with them, right? So, debt comparisons. What are some debt comparisons that we can use to measure velocity banking in the sense of like the success of it, right? And there's only a handful of debt elimination strategies out there that you can actually like really get good substance from. Okay? So you got debt snowball, you got debt avalanche, you got cash flow index, right? You can even make the argument for IBC as well. You got IBC, right? So debt snowball, low to high debts. You would line your debts from lowest to greatest, take that cash flow and just run that. How long is it going to take you to pay off each thing? You say, okay, that's going to take seven years, right? That's going to take 8 years, whatever it is. So that's extremely important. Debt avalanche, okay, is high interest to low interest, okay? So debt snowball, low to high debts, regardless of the monthly payment, regardless of the interest rate. You're just focusing on the balance of the debt. Debt avalanche, you're focusing on the interest rate, regardless of the payment, regardless of the balance. Cash flow index, which is my favorite, personal favorite, okay? Cash flow index, the formula is balance owed divided by monthly minimum required payment equals cash flow index. Okay, you get a number. Okay, below 50, attractive. Above 50, unattractive. You put the numbers from low to high, and that would be the order in which you would pay off debts. So if you got a car and the cash flow index got a 10 on it, and a credit card, they got a cash flow index of 20, the card would be first, then the credit card, right? If your mortgage got a cash flow index of 298, it's probably going to be last, right? Most likely the case. Oftentimes, cash flow index, I love it because it like summarizes all the different strategies, including velocity banking. Really gives you a nice measurement stick. So cash flow index, it's the same thing as, say, extra payments. Like you're making an extra payment with Debt Snowball, with Debt Avalanche, with cash flow index, with IBC. All of it is making an extra payment. It's just, how did you make that extra payment? How did you go about making that extra payment? Okay, so when you get your debt comparisons, you then have a ruler, and then you say, okay, doing cash flow index, no line of credit at all, I should be out of debt in 8.9 years. Velocity banking, 7.2, right? What's lovely is you can take the facts of cash flow index and inject it into your velocity banking plan. So if cash flow index says pay your car off first, then your credit cards, then your student loan, then your second lien mortgage, then your rental property, then your primary, right? Or something like that. Okay, then you would use that order with your line of credit. And so it's like velocity banking and cash flow index together. And I've done videos on that. I've done videos on velocity banking and Debt Snowball together, right? So what I've done over the years is I've made it less about versus, I've made it more about and. How do you do velocity banking and Debt Avalanche? How do you do velocity banking and Debt Snowball? How do you do velocity banking and IBC? How do you do velocity banking and cash flow index? If you start saying the word and over versus, it really opens up a world of opportunity, right? All of this right here has nothing to do with velocity banking. This is just good personal financial stewardship. Nobody would argue with this, which is why I'm able to talk with people that don't agree with velocity banking. They agree with me here, right here. They're like, dude, this is awesome. I'm like, I know. And so then I'm like, all right, once I've built someone's what? Discipline, then I can present a more complicated, complex structure to them. And chances are they're going to comprehend it 90% more than the average that doesn't have a single conversation or let alone spend an hour on their finances per week, right? So very, very important stuff, right? So you got preliminary work, more preliminary work, right? Here's another step so many of you rush like crazy. You guys rush this and it hurts my feelings. I must say, out of everything here, the thing that hurts my feelings the most is when my audience and even some of my clients rush. When I say rush, it's like, oh man, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, they're like children, adolescent, immature children. And I'm telling them, don't do that. Don't touch the stove. And they go and touch the stove. So again, 28 years old, I know nothing, guys. Like when I tell you, if you really knew me, like you could talk to my fiance, you could talk to my best friends, you can talk to my fiance's friends. When I tell you my education, my IQ level, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I'm not even, your fifth pick. I'm telling you right now. If you really knew me, really hung out with me, you'd be like, this guy, he's good with the numbers, but like you start talking the daily conversation or something like that, he's all the way over here. Like he doesn't keep, he's a little off sometimes. Sometimes I can be like that. Sometimes I don't get the joke. Sometimes I'm just like, I missed that one, Or It's things like movie stars, Hollywood stuff, like world stuff. Like, dude, everyone should know about that. Like, where have you been, my guy? And I'm like, I've been at the whiteboard. That's really where I've been on the numbers. Okay. I'm a geek at heart. Okay. So I'm telling you, up here there's not a whole lot going on other than, I love my fiance and I love my family and my friends and my clients and I love to run numbers. It's like, that's about as much as you can get, and then I got faith all over that. Okay. Outside of that, ain't much going on. So when I tell you, this is me being vulnerable, that you're hurting my feelings, I really mean that. Right here, this part right here is a little section. I made it small because I try to, reduce the pain a little bit for me. So I didn't make it so big. But this is really big. When it comes to banking tools and your credit score, you guys are rushing to get a first position HELOC or a second position HELOC or a personal line of credit or a business line of credit or a credit card, and you're getting the worst ones on the marketplace. Like you're forcing yourself to get a first lien HELOC just because I made a video about it. Just because I made a video about it. You didn't listen to the 50 minutes of me explaining all the intricate parts and all the pregame work you need to do and why you need to know your numbers and da-da-da-da-da. And all you heard was click the link below to book a call here to see if you qualify. And I don't know if some of you are just like skipping to the part where he's like, where do I go next? I don't know what y'all are doing. But it hurts my feelings because it's like, am I the problem? Sometimes I'm like, am I the problem, Lord? Did I not just spend an hour and a half giving them all the steps, and then they click the link and they go through, and just because they got qualified, that was enough for them to say, get me that, and not realize that you could have started off with a second position home equity line of credit and paid 0 to no closing costs and had a much lower introductory rate for the first year, and then over time got to the first lien HELOC. Or no first lien HELOC at all. So when I tell you guys are really hurting my feelings sometimes, you really are. When you get the worst freaking credit card and the worst damn personal line of credit from Navy Fed for 15%, when you could have went to your local smaller credit union and got something for 9 or 10, okay? Or you went to damn Wells Fargo for a home equity line of credit or Bank of America because you've been with them for 10, 15 years. And you didn't take my advice to go with the small damn credit union right down the street. When I did the Google search for you, I said, here you go. There's a home equity line of credit right here in North Carolina, right? In Georgia, in Virginia, in New Jersey, in New York, in Boston, in California, in Florida. I'm like, that's the one, right? Matter of fact, here's 5. And you go with Wells. And you go with, Big Bank Bro over here and Big Bank over here. And you get a 12.99 HELOC, 13% HELOC, when prime is at 8 freaking percent. Or you didn't listen to any of my advice at all, or guidance, or Christie's, or the Quacks, or anyone for that matter. You applied for a home equity line of credit when you had a credit score of 620, because that was the minimum. Minimum 620. No. You don't want to apply for anything if you're going in at minimum. No. You want to have credit score 720 or higher, because then and only then you're going to get the best tier 1 interest rate offer on that HELOC. So the website might say 8%, right? But it's in small print, based on credit worthiness, 720 or higher. And so you didn't read the details, you didn't read between the lines. You applied, you thought you were going to get 8%, they smack you with 12. Here you go, peasant. 12%. Here you go, single mom, single dad. 12%, 11%, and now you got to force velocity banking on a 4% car loan. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So stressful. So please, 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 please read between the lines. If you could just simply work on your credit score, raise it to 720 or higher, get your DTI down a little bit more, go with the local smaller credit union non-for-profit bank. I understand that they're not the sexiest, best customer service in the world or have the sexiest mobile online app, but when I tell you that rate is amazing, and the fact that they don't have closing costs and that you can easily move money in and out instantly, right? This is just so much more efficient. And then when I tell you get the credit cards at the small credit unions when it comes to 0% balance transfer, and then you guys go with the damn Discover for 5% balance transfer fee, 4% balance transfer fee. And I said credit union ABC over here has a 0% balance transfer fee and 0% for 12 months. So literally no cost to borrow. And you over here paying 5% on $15,000 balance transfer, getting ripped off. And I'm like, you could have went here, you could have started small, you went big, you got shot down because you're small, right? That's how the banks view you. You're small, you're nothing to them, right? But when you go to these credit unions, sometimes they do treat you great because you're their only customer. They only have so many customers with these non-for-profit bank credit unions, these federal credit unions. Those of you who are firefighters, military vets, government employees, teachers, right? They've got credit unions called Teachers Credit Union. They got credit unions called Police and Firefighter Federal Credit Unions, like dedicated credit unions just for police officers, just for firefighters, just for teachers, just for vets, just for government. That you can actually get 1-2% below prime on a freaking HELOC, right? And mind you, the rate is even less volatile. It doesn't even change that often as quickly as some of these other banks. And there's just more accessibility for you because they only serve firefighters, they only serve police officers, they only serve military, they only serve that, right? Way better. Way better. Are you kidding me? Way better. So stop hurting my feelings. Please do your homework before you apply. It's okay. You know, one of the things that really I know over the phone, it really upsets or it really upsets the client when I tell them, based on what I see, you probably shouldn't start in the next 6 months with Velocity Bank. They're like, what do you mean? I just paid y'all. I just invested and, you know, I'm going through coaching. I'm like, coaching and Velocity Banking, two different things, right? Coaching is accountability on you executing on a thing. That in and of itself is extremely valuable. Most people will never see the true value of a coach because they've never played sports before. That's the only other context that we see coaching displayed at its best. How is it that a coach that's not in the best physical shape, that's an older man or woman, right? So they're older, not in the best shape of their life, yet they're coaching some of the most perfect specimens of athletic sports, the tallest, strongest, best looking physique bodies, healthiest bodies. You ever wonder, like, how is that? Like, you ever wonder the relationship between Bill Belichick and Tom Brady? Like, Tom Brady, yeah, maybe he's not in the best shape of his life for the duration of his career, but I'd say he's in tip-top shape compared to most as a quarterback, right? And you look at Bill Belichick, he's not in the best shape of his life, but here he is coaching one of the greatest, football organizations that has one of the most has won, I think, probably the most Super Bowl rings, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or they've won many Super Bowls. They've gone to the Super Bowl many times in Bill Belichick's career, right? If you know anything about football, right? So it's like when you see coaches coaching people in the best shape of their life, giving them advice and guidance and accountability, it's a game changer in terms of their results. And quite often, those players are always giving credit to their coach at the highest level, behind closed doors and in front of the camera, the highest praises. So oftentimes, people are paying to quote unquote learn velocity banking. And because of my process being very different maybe from other people's processes, where they're like, dude, I really want to get velocity banking going, and it's like, we're just talking philosophical stuff, or we're just talking basic stuff. And I'm like, yeah, we're talking that because you never spent 2 minutes on it. That's like me handing you a loaded gun, go to the range, that you've never shot a weapon before, and I'm not even teaching you how to unload, load the clip, put the safety off. Like, you might shoot me yourself, or you're right, or you're not gonna do well. Okay, so super important. Okay, action steps. Once you've done this on your own, right? So there's the DIY style of you doing all this on your own, and it's possible, and I encourage it. I think there is a little bit of DIY in your personal finances because they're your personal finances. You're the one that wakes up with it and goes to bed with it every single day for the rest of your life. You should have some personal involvement in it. Very, very important. So you can DIY all this, and I would argue you would get, really, really good results if you follow it to a T. If you skip a step, then you're going to know why. Oh, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? Oh, well, he told me to do this, and I applied when I had a 650 credit score instead of 720 or higher, right? And so there you go. So action steps, DIY this, keep engaging in the content if you're brand new, okay? Then you can take it a step further and get involved in some more free things, like you can join a community, right? I got a Facebook group, I have a newsletter, I have a private community where I host classes offline, right? So you can take a step further and say, okay, I'm going to join this community and that community, maybe 1 or 2, 3 tops, right? And I'm going to get around people where I can hear testimonies, hear different ideas, pick up different gems, keep absorbing, right? Then you might say, okay, I need to put some money behind this. I want to invest in my personal financial development. Maybe I might buy a course, okay? So I have a course, right? It's $50 a month. And what I did recently is I added all my courses in one, right? So for $50 a month, you get access to all my life's work, not just on velocity banking, but everything I teach on this channel, right? Located in one account, and you see all the different products. And there's going to be group coaching, and I'm even going to offer some one-to-one coaching in that, okay? So be on the lookout for that. Links below. All that is there, okay? And then you got one-to-one coaching where you can hire someone on a one-to-one basis. I do offer that. There's people like Christy Van that does one-to-one, I think, limited, and then she's got group. You've got the Kwok brothers where you can have one-to-one support with a coach, right, in their organization. Okay, so very, very important to look into that. All right, and I have links below. You can email me directly. You can reach out to me. I do my very best to respond in a timely manner. I try. And if I miss you, send the email again. Hey, you never responded to me. It's been, a couple weeks. Just bump it right back up in my email and I should get to it. Okay? That's it. That's all the action steps for today. I'm going to scroll up and look at some Q&A. Right? And again, that we just spent an hour and a half on all the pre-game work. Insane. All the pre-game work. Right? Let's see. I get the hold on. I never see a video that completely explains the situation. I get the concept of this, but it's never explained 100%. I've seen if I can pay my mortgage off in 5 years, I'm about it. I already have a HELOC balance though. Okay, so Ryan is new, just got here, right? So Ryan, I've got case studies that completely explains the situation, gives you the full context, completely explains 100% of what's going on in that particular strategy, where you see the numbers literally on a day-by-day schedule of interest and all that. So that's there. You just go to my channel, you go to playlists, right? Matter of fact, let me just show you all the proof. Why am I pleading when I can just show you proof? Check this out. So velocity banking pregame work, all this right here will get you set up for success, right? Then we got on my channel, you come to playlist, right? Velocity banking using a second lien HELOC, 12 videos, nothing but case studies. Velocity banking with a first lien HELOC, 8 videos, nothing but case studies. Velocity banking with a personal line of credit, 16 videos, nothing but case studies. Real numbers all the time, right? Bunch of playlists in here. Velocity banking in a crisis, 14 videos, nothing but case studies on velocity banking in a crisis, right? FAQs about velocity banking, 69 videos, all the questions you'll ever ask, all on there. All about the line of credit, 15 videos on there. I mean, you're going to spend some time, my friend. You're going to spend some time, right? So if you're willing to put in that time, put it in. But if you want to, obviously there's people who skip past that and like, no, I want Denzel direct, so you hire me direct, and then we go to work, right? Yes, you can reach out, definitely. I have positive cash flow, sizable savings, max out my retirement accounts every year, simple IRA, match, HSA, and Roth. Awesome, awesome. My HELOC is 8.25%. Nice. $18,000 balance because I needed a roof and gutters. I know the credit card interest ends up being way less than mortgage interest, and it's quicker to pay off. I think I know what you're trying to say in regards to like using a credit card to run your expenses. So here's a quick question, right? Is a 10% HELOC would work if I have a 2.75% in my first mortgage? No. Stop right there. No. That's too crazy. And anyone on YouTube that suggests that you can pay your mortgage off faster with a 10% HELOC, even though you're on a 2.75% mortgage, they're probably just hyping the velocity banking strategy up too much. They're overhyping it. They're forcing velocity banking to work. And you don't have to force it, right? If I can get a intro rate HELOC for 4.99%, right? 5%, 6%. Even then, I'm not going to do velocity banking on the whole duration of that 2.75% mortgage, okay? And then there's even an argument for should we even pay that off, period. 2.75% in an inflation environment where rates are so high in today's marketplace. So that's a whole nother conversation as well. And it's okay to like have that discussion where it's like, hey, is there an alternative to paying off debt, period? So in this person's case right here, is a 10% HELOC, would it work if I have a 2.75% in my first mortgage? What if, random thought here, a 2.75% mortgage, let's say this person only has a mortgage. That's all they have, 2.75%. Let's say they are in Ryan's situation, positive cash flow, sizable savings, maxing out their retirement accounts, have an IRA, HSA, Roth, right? Let's say they're in Ryan's position with all that extra stuff going on. all they have left is a 2.75% mortgage, right? Could we run the math to see what would it look like if I simply invested and accumulated and created cash flow to the degree that I wanted in life in comparison to how long it would take me to get out of debt using debt snowball, right? So let's say at 2.75% using extra payments, easy. Let's just say it would take them 7 years to pay off their mortgage. Okay. In those same 7 years, could you accumulate wealth and cash flow to write a check in the 7th year to pay your home off in full? So that means you would have been paying the regular mortgage payment for 6.9 years, right? And then right at the 7th year, right, that last month, right before it makes it 7 years, that last month, say 6.9 years, okay, 6 years and 11 months, you wrote a check, paid off your home in full, you got the same result as the person that allocated all their time, energy, and effort of cash flow, locking it up in the home, versus the other person that simply created wealth, created cash flow in their life, increased their income, bettered their life overall, accumulated enough liquidity where they created the option that by 6 years and 11 months, they can just say, okay, the remaining balance on my mortgage is $200,000. Boom. They write a check for $200K. They feel great. They're debt-free and not broke. The person that takes all their time, energy, and effort to pay off their 2.75% mortgage just to recapture that cash flow in 7 years, let's just say, they're now debt-free and broke. Because now they have to take years and years to like sort of catch up with their like investments and stuff. Versus like you can actually do both. You can just service that debt. Yes, you're going to pay interest, service it in that example, and create all this wealth over here and create the option of just writing a check, paying all that off in full. Just a thought, right? But when those things don't get expressed to you, you're like fighting between, do I make extra payments or use a 10% HELOC? And I'm like, make extra payments. Well, what are we talking about, right? Like, no. I like to strike down those kinds of ideas where we can just take any kind of debt tool and just say, here's what happens. Here's what velocity banking people say sometimes. Your 2.75% mortgage is not 2.75%, it's 60%. It's 100%, or whatever. So then they'll make the argument that, okay, because you're paying a volume of interest of 60% on that mortgage or 10%, that 10% on your HELOC is somehow cheaper. And that's not the full truth. Because there comes a point in the amortization schedule of your 2.75% where you're actually, yes, getting charged 2.75%, right? Yes, I totally understand in the first years of your mortgage, you're getting charged more interest, right? More interest is being charged in the first years, and then it goes down over time. But depending on where you're at, if you're already 10 years into your 2.75% mortgage, you've already paid the bank back a majority of their interest. So there's not so much interest left to save or cancel, so to speak, right? In comparison to a 10% HELOC. It's not pretty. Okay? So true, Denzel. After we met during my consultation 5 years ago, my family kept telling me velocity banking was a scam. In hindsight, I would have been out of debt and wealthy by now if I would have listened and be open to what you were explaining. Wow. Velocity banking, I learned, starts with the mental shift. Absolutely. And it's not about getting manipulated into like velocity banking. It's pure math. It's a paradigm shift. It's a mindset shift. It's an understanding of there's interest rate, interest volume. And sometimes those two different things are very different, right? So it's not just a conversation of this rate versus that rate. we're looking at the total volume of interest over a period of time. What am I going to pay, right? Michelle says, I have the HELOC and consolidated my debt and I'm ready to start velocity banking. I understand the strategy, but I'm struggling with when to withdraw to make payments. My HELOC is not connected to my account, so there is a wait period to when it is deposited and withdrawn. Okay, so a way that we fix that, Michelle, is that your HELOC and your checking account need to be at the same bank. And then you'll technically have that connection where you log onto your mobile banking app or your online portal and you'll see your HELOC and you'll see your checking account at the same bank, right? Then you're able to instantly transfer money out and in to the HELOC without having to wait. That is key. Now, Michelle, if you have a HELOC with a non-bank institution like Avon, right, or Figure, okay, those are not true home equity lines of credits, and therefore, if you have one of those where your HELOC is at a non-bank institution where they don't have checking accounts, well, now you have that waiting period. And that causes an inefficiency. You're not able to fully express velocity banking the way you want to. And if you do have that kind of HELOC, my suggestion would probably be over time to stop using that HELOC and just get a different tool. Over time, we would stop velocity banking because we did it wrong. We got the wrong tool to begin with, let's just say, and we need to go to a different bank, period. Right? That would be the fix. If that's not the case, Michelle, and you just simply have HELOC at bank A and your checking account is at bank B, you just simply need to switch banks. So you create a better efficiency there. The second part of your question about when to withdraw, right? And when to dump in, right? When to withdraw and when to make payments. Very simple. You're going to know what days am I getting paid, Michelle, right? What days does Michelle get paid, right? If Michelle is bi-weekly, she's getting paid 2 to 3 times a month. That's it, right? So 2 to 3 times a month, money is going into the HELOC. You will schedule on your calendars, on your everyday money comes in. On that day, I'm transferring 100% of my money into my HELOC, right? And then you would say, in terms of withdrawing money back out to your checking account, every 3 to 5 days. This way, you're really only pulling money out of your HELOC about 5 to 6 times a month if you go on a 3 to 5 day schedule. So that means money's going in 2 to 3 times a month, money's coming out 5 to 6 times a month. It's a nice, easier, simpler system, especially for beginners. Those that get more advanced, you can do it daily. So if you're pulling money out of your HELOC daily, you're really keeping more of your money in that line of credit for as long as possible. Jay says, does the minimum payment on the debt tool count as an expense or not, since your income is going into the line of credit consistently throughout the month? Jay, to answer your question, if someone is not doing velocity banking and they have a balance on their HELOC, yes, I need to count that as an expense. The moment we turn on velocity banking, in your case, when they're dumping their income in, what happens is, technically speaking, it's not an expense in regard to it's leaving the checking account, right? Because the interest that's charged on your HELOC can get paid from the equity in your HELOC, right? So say, for example, on average, your interest cost on your HELOC is $500 and you have expenses outside over here of $4,000. Income is $6,000. So that means $6,000 is going in the HELOC and technically only $4,000 is coming out of the HELOC to pay bills. And then around on the interest due date, $500 gets taken from the equity in the HELOC. Some HELOCs are set up that way, where it just pulls interest directly from the available equity in the line. So yes, total, your expense was what? $4,500. Interest is still an expense, right? And you'll see that in your statements, right? Excuse me, but $4,000 left the HELOC for other bills, and then $500, let's just say, was interest cost. So total, $4,500, income $6,000, cash flow $1,500, balance gets lowered down, right? It's for real. We create lots of waste, right? That was me talking about waste management earlier. For my business, use it as a tool, but I need to learn to manage it better. Yes, absolutely. Velocity banking is awesome. I have a HELOC, but not managing it right. Mona Lisa Brown, right? A lot of people, this is what's crazy. Like, take away everyone that does not have a home equity line of credit. I'm going to put all those Americans to the side that do not have a home equity line of credit. There's millions of Americans throughout the United States that have a second position home equity line of credit and even a first position home equity line of credit and have never heard of velocity banking. And if all they were to do was turn velocity banking strategy on their second position HELOC or first position HELOC just to pay down the HELOC itself, they would get out of debt faster. Like, they would, right? So there's like millions of Americans that are misusing and abusing their HELOCs. They don't know about leverage capacity and risk and offsetting interest costs and how to consolidate. So it's like there's so many Americans that already have the tool, right? And to Mona Lisa's point, like, there's a lot of people in your case that are just misusing the tool, and a little bit of coaching, a little bit of accountability, that one-to-one can make all the difference. I think it'd be insane. Thank you, Logan. Appreciate you being here. T-Mobile does not let you pay with a credit card, debit only. Is that true, folks? I don't think so. I remember I had T-Mobile. I was paying with a credit card. I don't remember that when I was with T-Mobile. I'm with Comcast now. I got a HELOC. I'm doing velocity banking, right? Cool. Got a whole life policy. Obviously, right? The 2-year-old wants to tie his own shoes. That's true. That's true. Again, and I actually respect that, right? There's a lot of people that want to, they want to do it themselves. Okay. There's parameters, right? Want to do it right. Quick question. Does it really matter if you have a zero balance every month if you are using your card, if you are using your credit card in velocity banking? I'm basically paying statement balances and avoiding any fees. Does it really matter if you have a zero balance every month? No, it doesn't matter. Right? Because you're paying the statement balance, avoiding any interest. So technically, Sterling, you don't have a zero balance. You have a running balance every month. So every time you swipe the card, you now have a balance, right? And you're going to hold that balance until the statement date. So technically, you're running a balance every single month, right? It almost never goes to zero, right, when you're doing velocity bank. So in my case, every time I pay my credit card, I'm never really paying it off, but I'm also never paying any interest or any fees. So I'm leveraging the 0% interest period from statement to statement and always paying the statement balance in full. So even though I pay my statement balance in full, I'm still running the card to pay bills the next month on auto pay, right? And it just so happens the way the bills are set up that I always carry a balance month to month, okay? Important stuff. I understand velocity banking is strategy. Would you know if that is available in Canada? It is to an extent, right? It can be done, but there are some things with mortgages that it's a little bit different than here in the United States. Okay, so can it be done? Yes. Should you? May not always be the case. Do you help with figuring out when it's time to take both your mortgage and HELOC into a first lien? Yes, I can help with that. That's a simple math conversation, right? Figuring out the timeline when you've got looking at the amount of interest remaining on the mortgage versus the cost to refinance into a first lien, right? Oh, T-Mobile gives you an additional discount when you use your bank account. Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Paid all my debts with a HELOC. Now learning options trading as another stream of income. Lovely. Thanks for this explanation. I'm here doing it. I've been watching this man for 4 years. He's good. Thank you very much. Appreciate your support. And with that, that is all the questions that I see. And we're going to close it out here for today. That was a deep dive on what to do before you start velocity banking. And it is okay that after doing all this work before you start velocity banking, to not even start it. To know that you ran the numbers, and because you ran the numbers, it did not make sense for you to do velocity banking. That is not a waste of time. Trust me, that is not a waste of time. In fact, I would argue you're going to be way better off than the person that tried to force velocity banking because they're just a fan of the concept, and they're they have FOMO, right? They think they're missing out on something. And it's like, no, you're not missing out on anything actually, right? Get yourself some coaching and accountability and support in a community. Get your numbers right. Do these preliminary steps. I promise you, you're going to be 90% ahead of most Americans in the United States. It's crazy stuff. So with that, God bless you. Click the links below in the description. Check things out. Do your due diligence on me, especially if you're brand new. Don't trust what I say off rip, right? Validate me. Go back, Google me, research, do your homework, all that stuff before you trust me, or anyone for that matter, on the internet. You got to do your due diligence today. It's extremely important. I don't want you to get ripped off or misguided or misrepresented in any way. All right? Have a wonderful day. God bless, and we'll be talking soon.